record this. Um, uh, and you'll get a little notice that says we're recording, and I'll say you are welcome to turn on your camera or leave it off. And once Scheherazade begins, there'll be a presentation and then there's conversation, and you are welcome to engage in that at whatever level you feel comfortable. Camera on, camera off, microphone on, microphone off. But that is all. And of course, if you have questions throughout, feel free to ask Scheherazade for guidance. I am going to hand this over to the lovely Scheherazade, and away we go.
Hello. Hello. I hope everybody is having a nice day. I know all of us are all over the world, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint what kind of day. I'm winding down my day as well with Jean in Florida. And let me go ahead and get started. Somehow these classes never seem to be enough time to me. I'm always running to the very last second, so I like to get started. All right. Can you guys see my screen? We're all good?
No, you know what? I probably need to make you a host. I forgot to do that. There we go. Now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. I have a notification that I am sharing my screen. Can you guys see it now?
I just see
Okay.
you.
All right. Let me redo that.
Let's see. Wondering if there's
Well,
anything
we
I
have a
haven't done.
screen of you and one of collaboARTive with their insignia. I don't know your
Oh, there we
presentation.
are. There, now it's working.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Perfect. Okay. So this is, I believe, our fifth class of drawing on discovery. Um, and I'm excited to bring this one. I feel like I've been hinting at doing value drawings, and today we're going to touch just the iceberg of that. But this course is going to be finding value in mark making. And thank you to the collaborative for putting together these classes. They've been really wonderful, and I enjoy teaching them. All right, so about me, I am an Miami-based figurative artist and painter. I graduated from the University of Central Florida with both of my BFA and master's degree in art. I've taught at various institutions, and I teach various practices. So I do a lot of art fundamentals. Lately, I've been wanting to get into more complicated just uses of art, and been thinking more along the line of like what my work is actually about. But I'm very, very well versed in teaching arts fundamentals. So yeah, I am an exhibiting artist. I'm actually preparing for an exhibition in Miami coming up. If any of you guys are in the area, I'll have a drawing show up in November 14th, alongside Green Space. So
That's exciting.
yeah, no, I'm very excited about that. This will be my first time exhibiting my drawing, like my
Wow.
charcoal drawing, like the things that I typically teach. So super, super excited about that. But yeah, otherwise, I have been doing art residencies for the past 2 years, and yeah, that's about me and my practice. Here is an example of one of my courses. So I do a lot of observational drawing, a lot of um, pretty much bringing us from the bare bones and getting us to the point where we can recognize a shape in space and be able to record that. So one thing I like about my classes and the way that I was informed and the way that I inform others is that anybody can draw. It's really just repetition, just like any art. It's going to take a knowledge of what you're doing. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of repeating. So I always say the sooner you make your first 5,000 mistakes, the sooner you'll be able to correct them. Also, my voice is a little bit weird today, so I feel it phasing away. So we'll see. But the first never-ending function of an art student is to observe and to study nature. As artists, we spend a lot of time attempting to simulate the real or iterations of our reality. Therefore, it is essential we spend as much time in the real absorbing information that we can. Always make contact with your subject. Memory, imagination, your senses of touch, taste, and smell are all vital to an art practice. Photographs play an important part of how we record our world, but it is essential for artists desiring knowledge in applied arts, drawing, painting, sculpture, textiles, to learn that while photography is a tool, it does flatten reality. So this course is all about how to see and how to record, just from what we know. This will be one of the first courses where I don't necessarily have a video, so I'm just going to kind of walk you guys through the fundamentals. So I'm going to begin with value. So this is what this whole class is going to be about. Value is one of the 7 elements of art. Line, shape, form, color, value, texture, and space are some of the others. Value relates to the quality of light, dark, shade, and tone of a mark or a series of them. Value can carry more visual weight than color as it affects how we see an image. This is because it creates the illusion of mass and volume. Additional points are added. Oh, okay, that's not supposed to be there. All right, let me move on. Okay, so, all right. Let's go back one. Okay, so we went through value and here's contrast. Contrast is the difference in brightness between light and dark areas in an image. Contrast determines the number of shades in the image. So you'll usually see a scale. When I look at a piece of artwork, I'm looking at how light is being interpreted, because I think a lot of artwork is about light. It is about how we're seeing, how we're feeling. So even people who've never been able to see before generally will have, you know, just different ways that they feel, different ways that they see in their work. And for seeing folk, contrast is usually what we gravitate towards with an object. So if we can see a sphere, we're looking for how light is hitting it and how dark is hitting it. All right, so there are different types of contrast and there's different ways of utilizing it. So I find that a lot of students they'll tend to stay away from using a lot of contrast for fear of the contrast making an image too dark. It might make it a little too hard to kind of bring back to light. So I like to kind of soft introduce it. All right, so a low contrast image to the right of the center retains detail but tends to lack dimension and looks soft. An image with normal contrast on either side of the center image retains detail and dimension and looks crisp. An image with high contrast increases the drama of the focal point light and darks and generally contains a clean distinction of shape. So that would be the center left. All right. Okay. So I just have different examples of how contrast exists on an image. So I'm just going to kind of slide through them. I feel like if any of you guys have entered into an art class, this is usually one of the first fundamental things that we go through. But please ask any questions if you guys need to know a little bit more about this. So we're going to go and also represent our own value scale today. So I'm going to go through each point. So we'll talk about hatching, stippling, and blending in this demonstration. So if we zoom in, I'm also going to, there's full slides for all of these, but here's a close-up of it. All right, so hatching. Hatching is the technique used to create tonal or shading effects by drawing or painting or scribbling. closely spaced parallel lines. When lines are placed at an angle to one another, it is called cross-hatching. So hatching can look like this. I think a lot of people forget about just hatching, where it will just be several lines stacked on top of each other, next to each other. And then cross hatching, which will be the very top example, are when they kind of come together and create X's or a series of overlapped directional diagonal lines. And each of these is going to go from scales of light to dark, depending on how much mark making you've placed on a singular part of the page or a singular part of your surface to create that darkness. So you'll see scribbling, there can be zigzags, it can be anything you really want. It doesn't need to be set in stone. I also don't want this class to be definitive in the way of this is how you do it and there's no other way to do it. So I wanted to include this specific graph because I feel like this encompasses a range of drawing and mark making. All right. And ironically, one of the ways that I learned about crosshatching was the dollar bill. Like I remember being a kid and just putting it as physically close to my face as possible. And I was just looking at all of these close-up hatching marks. And I was curious how they were getting these images so crisp. And yeah, this is definitely something that taught me quite a bit about shading as a child. So I still look at them. I'm still deeply fascinated by truly any dollar that I get. I'm looking at how they're representing their images because they're all so dramatically different. But I do like seeing the US currency because it's actually just a draw, like the whole thing is just a really beautiful older drawing style. So yeah, I've included some close-ups so you guys can also delight in this. Yeah. Another thing that I appreciate about this type of hatching is that it encapsulates several different types of drawing styles and in hatching. So they're using the line to also implicate form of the face. So we're seeing how on the cheek, these lines tend to go from a straight line to a curved line just to kind of capture dimension. So when we look at it from far away, it has a photorealistic quality. And then things like the eyes, this is a hatching technique where they're all just parallel going from one end to the, just, I guess, the pupil in this case. And yeah, it's just really interesting to see how you can mix and match all of these different styles to get the image that you're going for. And same goes for a lot of Renaissance artists. I did not get the name of this artist. If anybody recognizes it, you can feel free to share. But this is just kind of a generalized vision of what I see in a lot of Renaissance etching, specifically etching, because it'll happen a lot in printmaking. I don't know if any of you guys have made prints before where you're etching into a surface, but one of the easiest ways to capture values of light and dark and get a deeper contrast is to just go over the same area over and over and over and over and over again until you end up with a darkness like this, where it is just essentially referencing black. There's going to be different pattern makings for fur, different pattern makings for literal fabric. So, and this is also how our fabric is created. So it does mimic life in that way. This does mimic like fur and animal movements in that way. And then the same thing for inanimate objects. They're using directional lines to kind of implicate space. And also the floor is really interesting in this image. Just because it's kind of like a geometric, it's like a puzzle piece of shapes coming together to create a form. So etching is a really wonderful resource if you're ever curious about the huge range of hatching. I think most artists do rely on hatching or an iteration of it. And then I think the other half of it relies on blending. Okay. So blending is the technique of gently intermingling two or more colors or values to create a gradual transition or to soften lines. So we should hopefully all be familiar with blending. So this is usually what people go straight for when they're learning to represent light and dark. So you'll see one end of the paper being pure white, and then just using the lightest touch of their hand, they're creating the mark of the pencil. And then each square progressively, they're getting darker and darker and darker and darker until they hit the end where they're using the pencil's full value range, which would be the black represented on this blending scale. So that is blending. Again, blending is very commonly used as an art form or just a way of making marks. I think it also lends itself to hyperrealism because I think the way that we view with our eyes doesn't really incorporate a lot of mark making. That's usually like how we would translate some things. So I think blending lends itself to just more realistic applications of mark. So we have this example and then this example. So this one, I remember seeing this piece in person and from far away I was kind of confused because I did think this was a photograph. This is a Miami-based artist. Their name is Aubrey Bash. So
Wait,
I
that's
think
not a photograph?
No, it's not.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. No, she's really incredible, but she does these very, very intricate high contrast drawings with pencil. So this is all graphite on paper. But when you get up close, this image will not show you that. And I don't think a lot of the images of her work online will show you. But they are like more scribble lines. So it's not even perfectly blended in that way, but visually it creates a smooth blend. I think Aubrey uses kind of like a scribble hatch. So it's kind of like all like this, and then it's blended into itself just because of how fine the marks they're making are.
That's incredible.
Right? So yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely feel my voice fading. It's I'm trying my best. All right. So stippling is the final on the value scale. So stippling is the process of using a number of small dots to create a desired image or pattern. In the stippling technique, the dots are applied using pen and ink, and they are typically made of a single color. So typically does not mean that is the only way that stippling is made. So it does not need to be pen and ink. It could be pencil, it could be charcoal, it could be paint, it could be really any application of media. But stippling is tedious. It's extremely tedious, especially to do large drawing fields, although it can be rewarding if that's what you're going for. So yeah, I think it's a really wonderful technique. It does just take a lot of time and it does take a lot of discipline. I think a lot of artists that I've heard who stipple speak about its meditative qualities because you are truly going dot by dot by dot by dot by dot. So there is that. Another thing that I've been thinking about recently is that tattoos technically use stipple techniques because they are just a series of needles going in and out of skin. So the more whole or the more ink and surface area that you're filling, you're going to end up with a darker space. And the less, just like the lesser traveled skin or media is going to be lighter. So I was just thinking about, I almost put tattooing as a demonstration, but here's one. All right. And before we get into the exercise today, I wanted to just do like a quick little image flash of how to hold your pencil. So this is going to be the typical position of how we hold our pencil. So it's going to be index finger and thumb, and then the pencil is going to rest on this section of your hand. So, and then you're also going to want to rest your finger on this finger. So this, your middle finger essentially. So I'm trying to find the camera. So it'll be like this, and then you just kind of hold the pencil. If you guys want to practice while you're listening, you can feel free to do so. If you want to do like just have a little less pressure on your hand, so you'll get lighter marks, I think this is a great way to hold your pencil. So the pencil is more or less like within your palm, and then you're using the tips of your finger to balance on the paper or to balance on the table. And then you're using the pencil very lightly, so that way it's not pressing as hard. It's just a release of pressure. So you'll also see the word saying for extremely free work. So a lot of gesture drawings will also use this way of holding your pencil. This as well. So this is when you're kind of moving very quickly. You don't want the pencil to be static the way this will, but this gives you a lot of control. Whereas these two to the right have a little bit more freedom. These are ways of working if you are using an easel. And this bottom one is more or less the same as the first one. It's just how are you holding your pencils? That way you're getting even more detail out of it. So I think this is a great resource for how to hold your hand. I always do hand, like how I hold my pencil demonstrations in my classes. Okay, so our supplies for today's course is 5 sheets of blank paper. You can use a sketchbook if you want, a sharpened graphite or charcoal pencil. I think technically it doesn't matter if you want to use a colored pencil because we're going to be doing value scales. So whatever pencil, whatever mark maker that you have in the area, as long as it is continuous and sharpenable is fine. Ruler, any hard edge will do, although a ruler today may be more helpful just because we're going to be making several shapes with it. And a circular shape. So if you guys need to go and find one real quick, I'm going to be using the bottom of my water bottle. So it is about 5 inches across, and I'm just using the circle, okay? So if you guys need to take any time to look for a circular shape, that is fine. In the meantime, I want to talk about the value scales. So this value scale is going to replicate the one that we saw earlier. So it's going to be 4 longer rectangles that cut across your page. If your sketchbook is small, you want to turn it into the longest direction. And yeah, we'll just take some time to build out these rectangles. Can everybody hear me? Is everybody ready to start this demonstration?
I'm here, we're here.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe everybody went to get their stuff.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Let me go back to my screen. So I'll let you guys look for about 3 minutes. We'll start at 6:30.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Of the pencils in the B numbers, should we be a 2B, 4B, or what?
That's fully up to you. If you're comfortable, I like to work with the darkest scale. So it would be
Right.
like a 4 or a 6 or a 9 if you have that.
I've got a 6.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, my drawing classes, I typically have them work with the extra soft charcoal pencils because those are the darkest of all of them. Even though they're all charcoal, softer pencils have darker values. And the darkness is rated on a 1 to 9 scale. And the hardness of the lead is going to be the B, the H. So if I think most people have worked with 2B pencils, 2B, yeah, truly everywhere. It's like the standard for dark and hard pencils to work with. Like if you guys remember the Scantron, I don't know if you'd have that, depending on how old we may be, but for me, I had to fill out all of my Scantron tests with a 2B pencil in high school. That's what most people have worked with, but they go way darker than that. So if you guys have a pencil set and you want to play with them, absolutely. I suggest everybody do value scales with all of your materials, just to know what it is capable of. All right, is everybody ready? I can't see the chat if you can, Jean.
Yes, ready.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so go ahead and create the graphs on your paper. We're going to be, again, doing each one in a different style. So the first one's going to be hatching, and you can label that to the side or above. So in this graph, it looks like this because I'm using a computer, but they don't need to all be connected to each other. So yeah, and the first one you can write hatching, and the second one you can write cross hatching, and the third you can write stippling, and on the fourth you can write blending. And if you want to change the order of any of those, that is fine, as long as stippling is the third one, we're good, because stippling is going to take just a bit longer. So. All right. So I'm going to give both of the hatchings about 4 minutes each. So those will take about 8 minutes to themselves. For stippling, I'm going to set the timer for 6 minutes, just to go from beginning to end, and try to keep your marks as consistent as possible, going from beginning to end. And yeah. So also in the bullets, I have written, use this as an opportunity to train your hand how to hold the pencil. If your hand still drags on the paper, use another sheet of loose leaf paper to protect your drawing. So often when I'm drawing, I'll have another sheet of paper underneath my hand if I'm working on a table. So that way my hand and I don't know if you guys are aware, but why you're not allowed to touch art in museums or just art in general is that our hands all have oils on them. And they are long-term corrosive to papers or whatever it is that you're touching. So it can be good, it can be bad. It just depends on whatever it is. But paper, you tend to not want a lot of like hand oil or body oils on the paper. So I use other paper to protect my drawing from my hand. And also, huh?
Sorry, could you show the diagram again?
Yeah.
Because I was out of the room getting something,
All
getting
good.
the round object.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
this, yeah, so this is the hatching or the value scales.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And I'll leave this here while we're doing the timer so that way you guys can visually reference it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll start with hatching. So hatching again is single parallel lines going from one end to the other end. And I want to challenge you guys to use the mark from like whatever direct, okay, how do I describe this? So if you see in this hatching demonstration, they're hatching like stops in different areas. I want you to complete the hatching from one corner to the opposite corner of your graph. So I just want complete lines, not half lines. And you can start with black and then work your way into white. So I would start with your darkest tone. So put a little bit of pressure into your pencil just to see how intense it is for the first one. So yes, first one, 4 minutes. We're going to start with black and then we're going to make our way into white. We're going to begin with a lot of pressure in your pencil, and then we're going to slowly ease up, ease up, ease up, ease up, ease up until there's no more. Nothing else you need to ease up for. So I'm setting the timer now.
All right, we're at about the halfway point. Keep going, keep going. There's another minute and 40 seconds left. All right, okay, so the first timer went off. We're gonna go ahead and start on the next one, which is cross hatching. And it's the same as hatching, except you're going to add another line in the opposite direction per each parallel line that you make. So you'll have 2 layers of parallel lines that intersect over each other in different directions and diagonals. So we're going to go ahead and start on the cross hatching, and I'm going to set the timer for another 4 minutes, starting now. All right, we're at the halfway mark for cross hatching. Keep going. There's another 2 minutes. All right. Okay, so cross hatching is done. And you can always return to these after this class if you want to, if you need more time. So stippling, I'm going to set a timer for, how about 7 minutes? So that way you can get all the way through and you don't have to rush too terribly through it. All right, so stippling is going to be a collection of points, and then you're going to progressively lessen the amount of points and dots as you get into lighter contrast areas. So I'm going to set the timer for 7 minutes, starting now. Right, we're at about the halfway point for stippling. Keep going, there's another 3 minutes. All right, so stippling is up, and we're going to work on our last one on the value scale, which will be blending. So blending is going to again be, and for blending specifically, I want you to not pick up your pencil the whole way through. So I want you to start with the darkest point, and I want you to progressively lighten up your touch, but it will be one line that I want you to just very slowly shade your way through until you're very lightly touching the paper, just like all of the others. So let me go ahead and lift this up as well, so that way you guys can see it. All right, so from here, we're going to set a 5-minute timer, and that is going now. All right, there's 2 minutes left on blending. All right, and there we go on that. So I hope that the value scales were helpful and informative for you. Let me put this back in the PowerPoint. All right, so if you guys are ready, we can continue to move on. So is everybody with me?
Now you're going to say, okay, draw a perfect, what am I trying to say? Draw
Yeah,
a picture like
absolutely.
that woman.
No, literally. That's exactly what I want you to do.
Right, exactly. Now draw.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
This part in the class is always so like soothing and calm listening to this music. All right, so now we're going to prepare for the final drawing. So if you guys could take that circular object that I asked you guys to look for, to grab, and I want you to place that on your paper and then draw a circle, just tracing the outline of it. This is taking the guesswork out of having to draw a perfect circle, unless you guys would like to draw a perfect circle. That is also very fine with me. But we're going to be doing our sphere drawing. So our sphere drawing is really to kind of train our eyes and our imagination as well to kind of look for high contrast, low contrast, mid contrast, all within one image plane that we're working with. So in both of these examples, you can see that they both have a value scale at the bottom. So this is just a very familiar task that anybody doing an introduction to art course would do. So this is truly widely available. So I hope you guys have already done this, and we're going to do it again today, just to kind of reinforce this idea of value, light, and shadow. So on the sphere, I want you to locate where you'd want to have your highest light, your highlight. And I want you to let that highlight rule the entire rest of the drawing. So you'll notice in, say, this example, you've got your highlight in the upper right corner. And then around your highlight, you're going to have a lot of contrast, which reinforces the drama of that highlight. But then you'll also see this replicated in real life. So if the light source is in that direction and it's not facing that space, it's going to be darker because it is not receiving the light that everything else is. So around your highlight, you're going to have your highest point of contrast. And then opposite that on the sphere, you're going to have your darkest point of contrast, which will kind of replicate the darkest point of contrast above. And I hope this is making sense because you guys can't see me pointing at my screen. There's also this lesser thought of area, which is where the light is reflecting off of the table and then hitting the small back portion of the sphere for your drawing. So you'll see it looks like a deeply crescented moon right above the shadow of the sphere. So you want to make sure that you get that too. Otherwise, we're going to be drawing the table, we're going to be drawing the background as well. And I want you to do all of this from your imagination. So we're not going to be using a reference point, just a circle, just a line that cuts through that circle. Do not put it through the actual circle, just the diameter on either side. And yeah, it also doesn't need to be in this direction. I actually want you guys to challenge yourselves to draw our light outside of the drawing that you see here. So I don't want perfect replications of what you're already seeing. I want you guys to challenge yourselves. I want you guys to create something new and interesting. So it could be that the light is coming at the center of the ball, which I think would be very interesting. It'd be very you'd have a lot more to challenge yourself with. So yeah, just whatever you do, don't have it in the exact same spot. Do it a little bit differently, even if it's further down on the ball, if it's further to the left, further to the upper left, that is all fine. Just imagine where light and shadow would interplay with the surface that you're working with. And there are technically like somewhat wrong answers, but I don't think that those wrong answers should kind of like rule how you're feeling about it. Just draw what you think is possible. Like if light can hit a surface and looks possible, I want you guys to try that. All right, so let me actually read my assignment. Find the circular object to trace onto your paper for the final drawing. Draw a rectangle around the circle. This will be your image plane. Draw a table surface through the center of the diameter of the sphere. Do not put this line through the circle. I also want to say that if you're working on the table, if you want to work with a light source that is very different than what you're seeing here in front of you, you can put the table lower or higher on the circle if you want. So it could be at the very, very top of the circle, which would imply deep space around the ball that we're working with. Or you can put it at the very bottom of the circle, which would imply a very shallow depth of field. So we're working with space. We're working with objects that don't technically exist. We're just going to make them exist. All right. Using any of the shading techniques you want. Okay, interesting. That sentence was not great. So any of the shading techniques that we have gone through except stippling, I don't want stippling for this final drawing. You can do cross hatching, you can do hatching. You guys can do the different variations of hatching for this. So it doesn't need to be parallel line, parallel line, parallel line. It could be a scribble line. It could be kind of a chaotic assortment. If you guys want to even do your hatching in the way that it replicates the form of the sphere, I welcome that. Kind of like the dollar bill that I spent time talking about. All right, so we will use the rest of this class time to produce this drawing. So it is 7:04. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. So that way it'll be 7:25, which will give us just 5 minutes to kind of share and talk about what we found when we were working on this. So I'm going to set the timer very soon, but I also want to point out these small tips. Look for light and dark shapes. Find medium shades. Let the light of the paper be the white. So same as all of your value scale drawings, this is that in action. So I'm going to set a 20-minute timer starting now. Right, we are at the halfway point of the 20 minutes. So if you guys find that you're pretty far in this drawing, I want you to find something new to push forward and push it towards your image, your mental image of mastery. And if you're not that far along, just keep going. You have plenty of time to develop this drawing. But if you are further along, just keep going. Find something new to get excited about and just keep making this drawing better and better and better. It has that in its nature. So there is 9 minutes and 20 seconds, and I'm gonna let that run. I think there's 1 minute and 30 seconds left. We're almost up. All right. Okay, so the timer just went off, and that is the end of this class today. So I want to hop back into the Zoom. Here we are. Okay. How did it go? How did it go?
Sure.
Hey.
So how was that, everybody? They're all still
You're muted,
dry.
Becky.
They're all still dry. They're all intensely focused.
No, exactly.
Intense, yes.
Um, did everyone enjoy this? Was it a good, useful lesson?
Yes, I learned quite a bit. I didn't
Fantastic.
realize about this before.
Yeah, Vivian actually put in their wonderful class. So thank you for that, Vivian.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Actually, let me look at the chat.
Yeah, now we can look at the chats. Yeah, there's just just a couple of comments, not too many, but I did put in the chat that as I mentioned earlier, we have recorded this session and we are going to share this. And then Scheherazade also likes, she'll share the presentation as well. So once I have that and the recording, I'll send it forward to all of you. And we do have other presentations on our YouTube channel. And you can find that link on our website, but you'll have it in the email as well if you want to go back and build on some other skills that and techniques that Scheherazade has been working on. There's a few prior to that as well. They're more conceptual, I think. She, Sheherazade, you've been great at just teaching the basics. So yeah, and making it very user-friendly and not terrifying.
Exactly. That's what I want. I want everybody to kind of come away with something that they could use somewhere, you know? So, yeah, I appreciate everybody being here today. This was fun. I love doing value, just drawings all the time, as you know. But I also love teaching it. So I hope you guys also enjoyed that. If you want to share.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Thank you. I like this parrot behind you.
Oh, it's a silk scarf
Oh, wow. Okay.
painted on silk.
Okay. Did you paint it?
No, no, no. An artist that sells scarves on Sydney Market.
Okay.
Did.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I've actually been getting into batik printing, and also I think I'm slowly entering into fabric painting. So
Beautiful
yeah,
fabric. Yeah.
just the next step naturally.
I'm gonna talk to you about where you can go see some interesting batiks when I see you next.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be
Like
wonderful.
masterful batiks.
Whoa. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you for sharing your time with us. and
Thank you
carving
so
out
much.
the
Have a good
time
night.
for some
You.
creative play and some learning. I really appreciate all
A
of
lot
you.
of learning. It was good.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
until next time, we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.